Hi, Bruce Warzoa, Coastal Real Estate, here to give you June 2022 South Florida market update. So what's going on? Today's kids are getting out of school. I know a lot of parents are going to be excited about that. In sports, Stanley Cup, Tampa Bay versus Colorado Avalanche. I'm really excited to watch that series. In movies, I gotta say Top Gun. Saw it last week. I think Tom Cruise crushed it. I think that's going to bring people back to the movie theaters. Father's Day is coming up. Fathers, be there for your kids, make time for them. That's a real reason why we do what we do, is for our families, right? So let's talk about real estate. Probably the biggest things to consider right now are inflation and interest rates in what's said to be a cooling market. There's a lot of conversation around the narrative, how this changing economy and how the war will affect us. One of the things to keep centered about inflation is looking at a basket of goods and then comparing it to different times throughout history. So they're putting a number on it right now, right about 8%. It feels a lot more to me, when you go out to a restaurant for dinner. 3 months ago, maybe it was $40. Now it's $80. All of you that are traveling, every time you book a hotel room, it's 3 times what you would have paid last year or the year before. Gas is at about $5 a gallon right now. So going back the last century, we've seen inflation at this level about 5 times now. So one of the things I was really concerned about is residential real estate, obviously. 2 things from reviewing historical data that I found is, number one, every time we've had inflation, residential real estate prices have actually gone up, but sales volume has gone down. And sales volume is what I would classify as the cooling part of the market. So for all the fishermen out there, it's almost as if there's no fish in the water, so you can't really fish, and so we're seeing a little slowdown. People just want to take a step back from fishing, which makes sense, but things like consumer confidence, people don't feel as rich as they felt last year, so obviously there's a pullback. Number 2, if you look at the data, Americans have never had in history more savings than they have right now. It's just that they're not sure if they want to spend it, which rightfully so. Since interest rates have gone up from 2.875 to 5.875, from an affordability standpoint, if you're buying $1 million home, putting 10% down, you're talking about a difference in a payment of $3,500 to $5,000 a month. That's a pretty big deal. I don't know if it stops you from buying as you get into the higher homes, the higher end prices, but it can create an affordability problem and makes owning a home at any price a luxury item, in my opinion. The other thing that's really interesting is, I don't want to get political, but I think the Biden administration, at this point, their only strategy is to continue to raise interest rates throughout the midterms. And I think if you look at the pedigree of the Fed right now, 75% of the people that are at the Fed are actually Democrats. So I think there's a chance we may see interest rates subside or maybe come down a little after the midterms. If you look at the housing inventory, all of the headlines keep on saying inventory is going up, which is partially true in South Florida, and sales volume is going down. But if we go through some of the inventory numbers, there are 7,539 single-family homes on the market in Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Miami metro area right now. That's still only about 40% of what the average has been over the last 10 years. Now, if you look at inventory being up slightly and sales volume being down, the other thing that we're seeing a trend of is a lot of the current standing inventory is being reduced. I'm seeing more inventory, but still significantly lower than we've seen over the last 10 years. And what I'm seeing is sellers, where their perception is the market is at its peak and having an urgent reaction to sell before it goes down. So I'm seeing a lot of mediocre product come to the market. And when I say mediocre, I mean something between a teardown to a huge fixer-upper at prices that don't really reflect where the comps are. their prices actually reflect where they want to sell their house. So sales volume naturally decreases as these houses sit on the market longer. Price reductions would be the next logical step on these type of listings. But when I take a buyer out, which I'm working with new buyers every day, we're having a really hard time finding quality inventory. And when we do, there are still multiple offers. So that's the reality of where we're at. As a buyer, I understand you don't feel as rich in this real estate market. Stock portfolios are likely down at a minimum 10 to 12% this year. Interest rates are up, and inflation is causing people to want to pull back. But that should not deter you. That should not really be your reason not to buy right now. If you're looking at South Florida as a whole in the long term, there is still so much data that shows that we are still very undervalued as compared to most of the rest of the country. We're still seeing historic demand from out-of-state buyers. Most of these people are looking for second homes because they're really sensitive to safety, they're sensitive to climate, they're sensitive to lifestyle. And with this big changing environment of working remotely or not having to go back to the office, people are hyper-focused on living the life that we live right now. If you look at our market relative to other expensive major markets around the country, say California, the Northeast, Chicago, they still look at our prices as a hell of a deal in comparison. If you're looking long-term, 3, 5, 10 years, as markets shift, I know South Florida market is just getting started. So if you're a seller, I think now more than ever, you have to make sure that your asset is unique and that it's an easy decision for a buyer to pull the trigger and buy your house. You've got to do the work to get the buyer to come and want to buy your product. They don't want to do projects. You may need to stage the house. You may need to paint the house. You may need to fix some things up. You need to work with an agent that can help you get everything set for your listing quickly. It not only helps with the photos, but it also helps with interest, activity, offers, and being the house that sells for top dollar and doesn't sit on the market. I think it's going to be a fantastic summer this year. I don't think it's time to overreact to what you hear in the media. There's still huge demand in South Florida. It's understandable buyers are a little scared, and if you're sitting there thinking about buying, thinking about selling potentially, you're looking at all these things, you're looking at the news and the negative narrative every day, the true reality is in the data. Investors, I still think now is a great time to invest, and I would say to everybody that I know personally, if you can't afford the marketplace you're in, there's a million other marketplaces to get into. I don't know if there's anything better than buying an investment property that you can positive cash flow every month and other people pay off your mortgage. If you hold that house long enough, it's going to appreciate. You're going to do better on your real estate than you'll ever do in your day-to-day job. If you haven't bought a property, this is your time. If you're thinking of selling or buying, you want to talk about the market, please contact me. Follow us, like our channel. I'm looking forward to seeing you all next month.